Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Territories Talk. Territories Talk was founded in 2018 to bring the smaller islands of the Caribbean together so we can discuss what's going on each island. It started off initially as a radio show in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, and in 2001 we expanded to be an online show where we can encompass more guests from around the region and reach out to many others around the region. One of the things about the Caribbean we have to understand is that everybody knows about the big islands of Jamaica, Trinidad, or Barbados, but there are many small islands that many persons don't know about or don't know enough about. And one of the goals of Territories Talk is to help educate the masses about every island in the Caribbean region. So for tonight's show, I have the pleasure of introducing a young man from a big man from a small island who's doing big things, and he's none other than Mr. Charles Woodley of St. Eustatius, and he will explain where St. Eustatius is, and he'll give us a whole gamut of St. Eustatius history. Some people know it as St. Eustatius, some people know it as Statia. So without further ado, Mr. Charles Woodley of St. Eustatius.
Hey, good
Good evening,
evening,
Mr.
Chris.
Woodley. How are you?
Hey, good evening.
How
Fine,
are you?
thank you. Good, good,
How's
good,
the
good.
family?
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about the big island that you come from.
Well, St. Eustatius is about a little more than 8 square miles.
Hmm.
It's a very small island.
And where are you located
Um,
exactly in the Caribbean?
well, we're just off St. Kitts, very
Hmm.
close to St. Kitts, St. Martin. If you look at big islands, we're right in between St. Kitts and St. Martin. So yeah, St. Kitts is our neighbor, one of our closest neighbors, besides Sabre,
Hmm.
which is another smaller island, and I don't believe most people would know Sabre. But from the three islands in the, let's say we used to call them the Bovawinds or the Windward Islands, the Dutch Windward Islands. Then you would have St. Eustatius or St. Martin, Sabre, and St. Eustatius. And we're very, very, very close, very near to St. Kitts.
Okay. This is your station flag. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Statia in the past was a very big trade point because they say you can travel from anywhere in the world and you by ship or by sea and end up to Statia. So they call it a diamond waterfall or golden rock. So you have the flag and the waters around and the diamond shape that the island is in is reflecting the diamond waterfall. And you have the Quill, which is a dormant volcano, and it's the highest point is Mazinga. It's a dormant volcano on the island, and you can see the other side, which would be Little Mountain. So, from side to side, you have one mountain and a lot of hills, but those are the two. So from Krill to Little Mountain is also in our anthem. From Krill to Little Mountain, from Venus to White Wall. So you will see the Krill, and that's a bit of how we would
Mhm.
depict our flag.
Yeah, this flag was do you know who was designed this flag?
It's a young lady, Suarez.
Hmm.
I wasn't on the island back then, but a young lady, Suarez, I think it was somewhere back in 2010 or something like that. I lived abroad for some time, but I think it was around 2010 or a little before that. It's I think it was Zuena Suarez.
Yes. Uh-huh. And this for those who don't know, this is what the in the background is what the quill.
That's the quill in the background. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the quill. It's a dormant volcano. It's a nice hike. It's a protected nature park right now, protected by Stinapa. It's national park. Yeah, a lot of people go for hikes, see birds, and it's a nice view of the rest of the island, and also in the crater on the inside of the volcano. It's fertile, so you have different fruit trees down there. I know, Chris, you would have gone up there a few times
A
while
few.
you visited the island. So,
Yeah. So we'll get into that one in a minute. For those who, how do you get to Statia? Tell us how you get to Statia. For those who want to
well,
travel.
we have Winia and we have a ferry, Makana. It's a subsidized ferry. Started, I think, 3 years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago. The Netherlands subsidized ferry service, and that ferry service leaves from Statia, goes on to Sabre, and then to St. Martin, and back in the afternoon, and then 2 3 days in the week it goes on to St. Kitts. So that's a Makana ferry service, and that would take about 2 hours from St. Eustatius to St. Martin because you stop in Sabre. And when it goes directly to St. Martin, I think you can do it like in an hour and a half.
And
So,
what's the cost on the ferry compared to the aircraft?
well, the aircraft, it's about, yeah, it's about double, more than double on the aircraft. So if the ferry is, let's say around a hundred US dollars, and on the air, by air, it would be something like 250, 250 and up. So,
Mm. So what's the actual size of Statia?
I think the actual size is, I think it was about 8.1, 8.1. Let me see, 8.1 square mile or something like that.
Oh, okay. We lost Mr. Woodley for a second. But Statia is approximately 8 square miles, which only compared to other Caribbean islands is a very small island. The population is presently around 4,000 persons. I want to say 4,000. Most people that are there are obviously related to each other. And just for, they have tourism, which a lot of tourists come there and they visit this place, which is a new hotel, which they have called the Golden Rock. It's a new hotel development built maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say. And as Mr. Woodley said, to get a lot of, if you fly into St. Martin, you can catch the Winair flight. It's a direct flight. It usually takes roughly about um, by plane maybe about 20 minutes from St. Martin, and as you said, by the ship, the ferry, fast ferry, would take an hour and a half, 2 hours if you stop in nearby Sabre. But St. Eustatius is a very, if you want to get away from everything and everybody, St. Eustatius is the place to go. Very literally crime free. The people are very friendly. People will stop to you in the street, say how you doing. There's everything you need there: water, internet, grocery, groceries, healthcare. So yeah, and Let's see what else we have on Statia. They also have their main economy is what you can't really see. These look like circles, but what they are oil. What they call that? Oil tanks, because their main economy is that they are a transit point between ships coming from the South America, bringing up oil from Guyana, for example, and other ships are coming in from, let's say, Europe. There's a transshipment point for oil. So that's the main source of the economy. A lot of workers are coming in to work at the terminal. And we have Mr. Woodley back. How you doing, Mr. Woodley?
Good, good, good. Thank you. Let me see.
I could be wrong, but I had stated earlier that the pot is going again. One of the problems we have in the Caribbean region is unstable internet issues. So please bear with us. I'm sure Mr. Woodley is working to get back on. So as I was saying, there's a lot of workers that came into Statia to work at the oil terminal. You're back again.
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. Sorry about that. Yes, I could be wrong, but I told them the population in Statia is roughly about 4,000 persons right now.
Okay, well, last what they had on at the at the government was three 3,400. We always say 4,000, but
Yeah.
they had 3,400, and the size of the island is 8.1 square miles, which is about 21 square kilometers.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. But you know, what Caribbean people, we always round up. If we see three people, we say five. If we see five people, we say 10. It's 4,000 people. What would you say is the main economy in Statia right now?
Well, that would be the um, the oil storage facility.
Hmm.
However, things have let's say slow down a bit, but that was a main economic pillar on the island. Besides that, you have a lot of money that they call free allowance that would come from the Netherlands to keep the islands running.
Well, we know there's no such thing as free. It's got to
Well,
come from somewhere, right?
yep, yep,
We'll
exactly.
get into that part later, because that everything
Okay.
everything has a what they call that strings attached, right?
Yep, does does. Yep.
And I had stated how long ago was this hotel built?
Oh, you have the Golden Rock Resort, and that I think around 2020, just in
Mhm.
the time of Corona. I think it started a little before, maybe 2019, and right now it's up and running, and there's still a lot happening, but that is it started around 2019. Plans would have started earlier um, for um, for the grounds, purchasing the property, and so forth. But I think the groundbreaking would have started somewhere around 2019.
Mhm. Yeah, and Stacia also has what is this, sir?
As sorry.
No, I was asking you, what is this that we see here now?
I can't see my screen. I'm afraid to even touch the screen
Okay.
because I'm not sure what is
All
gonna
right. No
happen.
problem.
It's
I'll
very
just walk
dark.
you through. Right now, I have a picture up of the uh one of the things that Statia historically is recognized as the first island to do what?
Okay, so Statia would have been the first island to declare the United States of America independent nation. Independent of Great Britain, and yeah, that was the first salute from the Fort Orania, and they acknowledge or recognize the the American flag, and they saluted it and declared that the America an independent country or people.
Yeah. So what for the listening audience or the viewing audience? What you see here, there's a picture of the quill in the background. This puff of smokes is from cannons being fired, and the ship in the foreground would be the Andrew Doria was the name of the ship.
Yeah, Andrew Doria. Yeah,
All right. So the Andrew Doria is the name of the ship. And if you look at the flag carefully, the flag is the stripes, but it also has the Union Jack, which at one point was the flag of America, right? Before they
yeah,
had stars and stripes, they had the stripes, which the stripes recognize the colonists, the 13 colonies of the United States, which would have been New York, Boston, Massachusetts, Delaware, Maryland, Georgia, Florida. No, maybe not Florida, may not have been it. But the 13, Pennsylvania was in there. And then you had the Union Jack, which was signified that they were a colony of the United Kingdom. So
yeah.
in 1776, the Dutch in St. Eustatius fired a cannon volley, which was the first country to recognize America as an independent country, as Mr. Woodley stated. So
It's
that's just
the
a fun fact that many people in the world don't know.
Yeah, it cost us dearly also, but it's
Right. Well, we'll get into that into maybe the next episode. We'll talk about
yeah,
that part. But what I failed to do state earlier was I would like to recognize our media partners throughout the region. My apologies, which is Cayman Road and Cayman Islands, Channel 82 in Bermuda, Radio Montserrat in Montserrat, Radio Turks and Caicos in Turks and Caicos. Uh, we also have a radio station a partner with a radio station over in Sable, which is right next door to you, and
yeah,
also CBN Radio in the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, and CBC, which is in Barbados. So, as I stated earlier, we started off 7 years ago, and as time goes, we evolved and we're broadcasting, not necessarily live, but the recording of this show is broadcast in many different islands. And I also want to give a shout out to my co host, Shayna Smith Archer of the Virgin Islands, and Madam Speaker Shirley Osborne of Montserrat. So it's just to say us small island people, we work together, right?
okay.
So Mr. Wood, let me just remove this. Statia is a colony of which European country?
Oh, the Netherlands. So we form part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Hmm.
So, and in 10, we became sort of integrated. It's a difficult explanation, but it happened. So since the 10th of October 2010, Statia is considered they call a public entity, um, of the Netherlands. So
Mhm.
it's a special municipality, as they call it.
So another word for colony. They could come up with whatever word they want. When we're not partners, but if you're treating me as less than equal,
Exactly.
you can call me whatever. You're treating me
Yeah.
like a colony.
Well,
So
a public body, a public entity. I mean, it's yeah. But we'll get into that as you said. So
yeah, and you're governed by a. I want to say you're governed by a local council.
well, we have elections and there's island council.
Hmm.
Um, Island council
What?
appoints the executive council, and then there's a governor, and the governor is appointed by the Hague.
Right. So the building. I don't know if you can see this, Mr. Woodley. Building that I have up now is the Executive Council building, which is in your capital, which is Oranjestad.
Yeah.
And this is a picture of the Island Council room, which is basically, for lack of a better term, is the Parliament of of St. Eustatius.
Mhm.
How many Island Council? How many Island councillors are there?
There's five council members.
Mhm.
There's talk about increasing, but up until now, there's five council members.
And how are they elected or appointed?
Um, they're elected. They go to the polls. They campaign. You're free once you can garner enough votes to recognize your party. You can take part, participate in the elections, and usually the division goes based on the eligible voters. So usually around 1,700 eligible voters, and the seat division goes as to the person that go out to vote, and then you have what they call the residual seats. So if you would have won 2 seats and the other party 2 seats, the one usually that is closer to the third seat will get the third seat. Or if there's a smaller party involved and they would have be closer to the fifth seat, then they will receive that fifth seat. So it's as they say, um, it's based on that structure. If it's free and fair, we can debate on that. But that is the structure that we have in place. Um, five council seats, and 2 commissioners, which form part of the executive council along with the governor. So those are the three that has voting rights and day-to-day running of the government, which is the executive council, and they form part with the governor. The island secretary is also a part of the executive council. However, the island secretary doesn't have any voting rights.
Mhm. So how do you know all of this?
Well, I came up in a political home. I was a commissioner, and I was removed by the Dutch in 2018. There was what they called it. Um, they halted democracy.
Mhm.
They said they had to intervene. It was an intervention. They leveraged a lot of accusations. We know why. It goes back to prior when we talk about equality, the right to self-determination, and things like that. More autonomy and the right to govern oneself. This used to be a strong point of the Progressive Labour Party.
Oh,
However,
so
since this intervention, sorry,
no, no, go ahead.
since the intervention, I'm not clear as to um, if oh well, it's clear that this is no longer a principal pillar of the Progressive Labour Party. So we would realize that everyone or the majority has conformed into the will of the overlord, which is the Netherlands and the government of The Hague,
Right.
which
So,
yeah,
mhm.
go ahead.
So for in the term for many persons who like the Dutch system is a um, little bit not it's not the common system in the Caribbean. Most islands in the Caribbean are still using the English system, the Westminster system. So for argument's sake, if you're from an English island or former English island, imagine as if someone from London just said, oh, well, your government is corrupt. We're going to dissolve the parliament and take over, and we're going to direct control your island directly. So that what that means is the people that you voted for as your MPs are no longer MPs. You now are being dictated to directly from someone from England. That is what happened in St. Eustatius in 2018, where the Dutch government, the Dutch government, said, well, we hear or we feel or we think there's corruption going on. They never proved any corruption. And they dissolved the island council and started dictating to St. Eustatius directly from Statia, which is basically goes back to say it's still a colony. We can still do whatever we want to do, right?
Yep, correct. That's correct.
Right.
That is,
So that
yeah, it's unfortunate. It's, but it's correct.
right. So what are the two main political parties in St. Eustatius?
Well, right now, the two main parties that hold seats in the Island Council would be the Democratic Party as the opposition, which they have two seats, and the Progressive Labour Party has three seats. So they are the govern. They are the ruling party right now. They are in government, and they are the ones. I don't know if they're calling the shots, but they're sitting in the seats.
This is very diplomatic. So for this is interesting because in throughout the Caribbean region, there are actually four parties who use the name have the name PLP. Do you know the four
Okay.
parties, Mr. Woodley?
I know there's one in I think in St. Kitts. Am I correct?
Hmm. Yes.
I think there's one in where is the Bahamas.
Yep.
Um, where's the other one? Um, I'm not sure of the other ones.
All right. So let me help you out. In 1953, the Progressive Liberal Party was formed in the Bahamas.
Okay.
In 1963, the Progressive Labour Party was formed in Bermuda.
Okay.
And in 19, no, I shouldn't say 19, I would say 2000s, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. 2000s, the Progressive Labour Party was formed in St. Eustatius.
Uh-huh.
And in late, I would say going back maybe about 8 years, the People's Labour Party was formed in St. Kitts.
Yeah.
So there are four PLPs throughout the region. The PLP in Bermuda and the PLP in the Bahamas are sister parties where
Okay.
persons from Bahamas helped to form the PLP in Bermuda, or give some input towards forming the input in Bermuda.
Okay. That's good. Good information. I knew I have a friend from the Bahamas, and he told me back maybe 4 or 5 years ago that there's a PLP in the Bahamas, and I know of the PLP in St. Kitts. Now I
Hmm.
know Bermuda. So then Bermuda
So
and
what?
St.
Here's
Eustatius,
the
that would
other
make it.
interesting part is that currently in the Bahamas, the St. Kitts, sorry, currently in Bahamas, the PLP is the ruling government. In
Okay.
St. Eustatius, the PLP is the ruling government, or majority, the majority seats in government.
Okay.
And in Bermuda, the PLP is the ruling party.
Okay.
All right.
So you have PLP in four territories.
And PLP right now in in
Think-
St. Kitts is
Yeah,
one of
the
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 opposition parties.
opposition. Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I mean, this picture here is actually of the PLP in St. Eustatius, correct?
I can't see my
Okay.
screen. I'm
Okay.
afraid to really
Oh,
play with it.
there's some folks in orange. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that would be the PLP. That would be the PLP.
All right. So for those who can see, you have a picture of the PLP in St. Eustatius. This is their logo. A gentleman, a man with arm up and a hammer, and there's quite a number of persons there. The leader of the PLP is a female, correct?
Yeah, Richelin Leardam.
All right. So, just for full transparency, I'll just speak about myself for a quick second. I had the honor of growing up in St. Eustatius when I was younger. Mr. Woodley is actually my little cousin. Well, he's taller than me, so my big cousin, no, but he's my cousin, and we grew up on the same road. Um, Miss Leardam, who is the the um the leader of the PLP. She grew up right across my street, right on the same street, right across from my house, my grandparents' house.
Yeah,
And Mr. Markman lived on the same
yeah,
street as well.
yes,
So on that same street, one street called Concordia Rig, um, three current and four past um, representatives grew up on that same street. So we all come from I mean, well, I guess it was the Democrat Party at that time, but we come from a political background, which basically, irrespective of politics, is about standing up for our people, right? Irrespective of
true,
whichever party it is, it's about
true,
standing up for our people. That's first and foremost. Well, so we'll get into that part later on because a person doesn't have to be elected to be a leader, and not every leader is a person doesn't have to be elected to be a leader, and not everybody who is elected is a leader. So we'll just get into that into a little while, in a little while. But we'll talk a little bit more about on the cultural side. We have tell us about Statia Day.
Okay. Station is celebrated on November 16th,
Hmm.
and yeah, I guess they reenact or they try to highlight the salute of the first salute, as they would call it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm not sure um, if I agree with that Statia Day, but that's the day we celebrate. But the nation celebrate
Hmm.
Statia's Day, and there's usually they call it Statia America Day. I don't know if America is as intrigued or fascinated about the Statia America Day as we hype it up to be. But the November 16th is when we celebrate. Statia Day, and there's usually celebrations from about 6 in the morning, so until the night, and we have a Statia Week celebration, which is activities at the stage here in Oranjestad.
Yeah, so on my screen, I have a picture of some young ladies in some traditional Statia dress on the stage. Across from the library,
Yeah,
and
former
then
Charlie's place.
right, and then there's another one of the Boys Brigade raising the Statia flag at Fort Oranjestad.
Yeah, that's traditional. That happens. Usually, I don't go out to it as often as I used to, but when as a boy, we would march to the fort, to Fort Oranje, and we would hoist the Dutch flag and the Antillean flag until I guess early 2000 when we would have had our own flag. But we would go to the fort, and at 6 in the morning we sing the anthem and hoist the flag to
Mhm.
commence the Statia Day celebrations. You would have speeches early in the morning, songs, and different activities, and then you would have the parade through the streets and around and ending back into Oranjestad at the public library with the different color parties, the brigades, and the Boys Brigade, the Pathfinders used to be the Catholic group also of young people. And lately we have the Defense Force band from St. Kitts who, come along and celebrate the Statia Day festivities here on the island also.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, the thing is that the unfortunate reality is that the mere fact that we're in the Caribbean is through colonization, right?
True.
We whichever island we are in is because of some European nation, um, superpower at that time, importing enslaved Africans. We were not slaves; we were enslaved Africans, whether it be to St. Kitts, whether it be to Statia, whether it be to Sable, whether whichever island. We got her. We didn't get her via fast ferry. We got her via a very slow boat called a slave ship.
True.
Um, one of the interesting things about Statia is that a large proportion, your family, our family included, a large proportion of the persons in Statia, their family originally came from St. Kitts.
Yes.
So your surname Woodley is actually from St. Kitts. It's not a Dutch name. It's an English name, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's correct.
because of the proximity of St. Kitts and Statia. Like how by boat, how far is it from St. Kitts to Statia?
Well, if you go to the closest point, I can give you, we can get there in like 25 minutes by boat to the
Hmm.
closest point, which would be Dip Bay. You
Yeah,
know, I've been on boats and we got to Dip Bay in 25 minutes. Now, if we go up to the city, which is um, the
that's good.
Bastia. If we go to Bastia, it would take us about an hour. But
Hmm.
it's to debate, it's very close. That is, we have always battered and did a lot of our shopping over in St. Kitts, throughout generations. That is, St. Kitts is our go-to. It's our closest neighbor within the region.
Well, Sable is close too, but
Yeah, but
Sable.
it was not that close, and the waters, the channel to Sabre is not that forgiving. It's much more difficult than the channel crossing the channel to St. Kitts.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
St. Kitts, from point to point, from White Wall to Deep Bay is much closer than from Statia to Sable.
Yeah, I noticed I was going through Facebook one day, I forgot whose page I was on, and there was somebody on jet skis, right? Going around, they were on jet skis going around station. I was like, that's wild. Like, I know when we didn't have jet skis when we were growing up there. Well, just to
Hmm.
think you could actually take a jet ski and go from, theoretically, you could take a jet ski and go from St. Kitts to Station in half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. That is
which, which,
possible.
which goes back to the history of saying that during colonial times, slave owners went from island to island buying, purchasing enslaved persons. And a lot
Yeah,
of slave owners, they went to St. Kitts because St. Kitts was historically, for the Eastern Caribbean, St. Kitts was the first port of entry that ships from West Africa came, right? They came there, they offloaded slaves and persons from smaller islands close by, whether it be Nevis, whether it be Montserrat, Statia, Sable. They went there and they purchased human cargo, right?
yeah.
So, so I use that. We get into this not necessarily this time, but another time about the historical connections between St. Kitts and many other islands that people often forget, right, or don't know.
True, true.
But like I said, it goes back to the point that a large proportion of the 3,400 persons in Statia, how many would you say are locals?
That is difficult nowadays to really say who are locals and how we define locals since you have integrated into the Netherlands, as I say. It's
Okay,
yeah.
let me be blunt. How many people in Statia are Statia people?
I would say I would say at least 70% 75%.
All right, so
I would say that.
in the 2000 region, right?
Yeah,
So the point I'm driving at is that most people in Statia, half of the people in Statia at least, the family came, whether it be first or second or third generation, the family came from St. Kitts. Because
true.
Statia being a Dutch island, it means that the slave owners at that time would have had Dutch names. So anyone who had a surname with a Dutch name, that the part of the family was part of the Dutch slave owners. And persons
True.
with the English surnames would have been persons that came over, were brought over, or came over from St. Kitts, right? So that's sort of
True.
the, and even
True.
as a Dutch island, you order Dutch is in your first language, correct?
Dutch is the language of instruction. Used to be the language of instruction. That would have changed, and back in 2012 or 2011, I think they made a change and they chose to use English as the language of instruction and Dutch as a second language. There's still a lot of confusion about that because, there are people on the island and also Dutch influence that believe that you must, speak Dutch because you live in the Dutch kingdom. So, although they have changed the curriculum and moved to CXC, and there's a lot of push and I would call it pressure still for students to speak and learn Dutch.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I have an opinion on that also, but I will hold my opinion until I'm asked. But yeah, I would prefer. I would prefer if we would have been instructed back then as English as our first language also.
Mhm. Yeah. The thing about it, right? One of the things is when we were growing up, no matter which island you were growing up, you were sort of indoctrinated. I'm gonna use that term, indoctrinated that you should be more like your colonizer. So you should speak better English, or in the case of Saint Eustatius, you should speak better Dutch. The more better you speak this language, is it takes you to a higher level, right? And it's a form of it's a subtle form of colonization that takes us who are of African descent and forces us to subliminally feel inferior if we are not speaking the language of the proper language of those who colonize us. So whether it be um, in St. Kitts, or whether it be in Bermuda, or whether it be in St. Eustatius, the unless you speak good English or good Dutch, they're looking at you like you're not you're not civilized, you know.
Mhm. I have a different look at that, a different view of that. I don't want to be charmant about who I am and where I come from. Um, like I say, my personal belief, the Dutch anthem says, Wilhelmus from Nassau, I am from German blood. And I think I am on the cameras here. I don't think you can see any German blood in me. So I can't sing it. I don't want to sing it. I do not have a problem with those that have German blood in them that want to sing it. But for me, my personal belief and who I am tells me that I don't have any German blood in my DNA. So I stay away from what is theirs and I leave it up to them to enjoy their anthem the way they like it.
Well, I concur with you. Anything I would add is if we did a DNA test, we will find maybe a drop or two of some European blood in us, right? Although it
Oh,
doesn't show it, and well, we have to, the question then becomes how did that get there? But that's a whole nother topic. You
mhm.
you are a union shop steward, I think. Tell us about that.
I'm the president of All for One, or the chairman of All for One Union. I'm
Hmm.
here at the union office now. As our first homegrown labor union on the island. We started 10 years ago. So this year in May, we should be celebrating 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, and started with myself and a Dutch lady, deceased, Christy van der Sande, very good friend of mine, very a mentor, very, very um, good friend, comrade of mine. And she passed in 2016.
Hmm.
Also with another Dutch teacher, linguist, Koet Kerkhoff, and his wife, a local lady, Jacinta Bryce, back then. So we started All for One Labor Union. And today we are still here. We represent the workers at the terminal, we represent the nurses, we represent the teachers, we represent the electrical company, we represent security companies, and so forth. So
Hmm.
we represent um, a huge part of um, the labor force here on the island.
So the union is called All for One.
Yeah, it's all for one, and our logo. You reverse that one for all. We all know the drill. I can remember when we talked about it, and Christy made the logo. Christy was a Dutch lady. She lived in Suriname for a few years, and she was the activist type, and she lived in Curacao. Also, she wanted to make a difference. And
Mm,
when she got here and she heard me, she said, you know, I'm going to keep you out of trouble. And she would, any topic that I would choose, she would make sure that, you know, I got my facts straight. And as she would say, she's keeping me out of jail, keeping me out
mm,
of prison. She would make sure that even while I'm on set, as I worked on the radio, she would be making sure that I have all that I need. I'm well equipped to go forward. After that, we were representing, you know, people with immigration issues, with healthcare issues. And after we realized that everyone was tired of us because we were standing up for those that had no voice, and for those people who are accustomed of you know, treating the less fortunate, you know, less, we were a problem. So we start calling out things, and then we needed an official place, an official foundation. So we decided that we would start a labor union, and yeah, all for one is here, um, and moving strong since we started. Christy is no longer with us. However, we have a good board still, and we have a strong membership.
mm. Yeah, want to give a shout out to Miss Shishi Loveshine, who's in St. Martin, and by the spelling, I'm going to take a wild guess and say she's on the French side of St. Martin, but that's another show, and we could talk about the French and Dutch sides of
Okay,
St. Martin.
okay,
Also, there was a lady from Bermuda, Miss Gilbert, who's tuning in. So I just want to say
okay,
hello to Miss Gilbert from Cookseal in Somerset, and also Sheila Cable, who's in St. Kitts. There's other people tuning in as well, but I just want to give them a shout out because they are what I would say constant supporters of Territories Talk. Um, we're closing in on the hour, so I want to say shout out once again to my co-hosts, Shana Smith Archer in the Virgin Islands, Speaker Shirley Osborne in Montserrat. Also, shout out to our media partners, Cayman Marwood and Cayman Islands, Radio Turks and Caicos, Montserrat's ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands CBN Radio, Bermuda's Erin Channel 82, Radio PJFE in Saba, and Barbados CBC Channel 8. Because what happened is not everybody can watch the show live. So what we do is the recordings, we then send the video and audio to all our media partners, and they play them throughout the at their allocated time. So over the course of time, this interview will be seen in multiple different islands. It's also available online, but more importantly, it's always there for people in other islands to see, because it's important for us to share our stories, what's going on in each island. So because we know CNN's never going to do a story on Central Statia's or Bermuda, right? We're not on the radar.
exactly.
How many? So for all for one, how would you feel the government has interacted with your union?
Um, we represent, as I said, a good chunk of the labor force, and although the government, most, as they say, their hands are tied, I think they have a listening ear for us any time that we ask them to hear as stakeholders, or we send them information. They usually make it their business to meet with us and sit with us and hear what we have to say. And, you know, they would, you know, share their views and try to do what they can do to support whatever whatever position or notion we have before us.
Mhm. Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to the Vigilante Dialogues in the Virgin Islands. We're gonna close up this one in the next 5 minutes, but I want to continue this conversation sometime next month because there's some historical ties between Saint Eustatius and Bermuda in that not a large amount, but there are specific Bermudians whose family actually came from Statia. And there's a part in Statia, Bermuda, we have this thing called Bermuda limestone. And during the slave era, colonial era, there were ships that were coming from Bermuda with this limestone and going down to Statia and returning back with human cargo, right? There's a
Okay.
part in Statia, there's a wall that is actually built out of Bermuda stone that I'm going to ask you to, I'll tell you exactly where this wall is. And I'm going to actually take a picture. So when the next time you're on, we can show Bermudians that there's a piece of Bermuda, a permanent piece of Bermuda in St.
Okay.
Eustatius.
Okay.
Um, as we start closing up, is anyone you want to give a shout outs to?
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for my tardiness. Ended up in a meeting, and it was, it was crazy after
Don't
that.
worry,
So I apologize.
we're on Caribbean time.
Well, I like to be on time for the listeners also, and for those that want to tune in. It's not nice, so I just apologize for that. Um, I had some meetings, but to those that are listening to your program, Territories Talk, those constant listeners, those who I have shared it with, I look forward on the next time that we're on, and also I will look forward to your to Territories Talk to tune in and see what's happening. I think was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I was with you on the radio for a
yeah,
bit.
that's a yeah, that's a slightly different show called Motion to Adjourn, which because it's a
Okay,
radio show, it only aired in Bermuda at the time. So Territories Talk actually has a much
okay.
wider reach.
Wider base.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So I want to shout out to those that will listen or those that have been listening. And I want to thank you for the opportunity. And
Mhm.
I'll do my best to make sure that next time we don't have this delay in
Yeah, there's no problem. There's no problem. So I just want to just again for full transparency, Mr. Woodley is my cousin. His father, his was named Albert Christopher Woodley, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
My name is Thomas Christopher Famous. You see any
yeah,
correlation there?
yeah.
But he is my younger cousin, but he has exceeded me in so many different ways, and I don't often get to tell him how proud I am of him because he's a man of principle, he's a man of faith, right? And he's a man that has led persons in his country from strength to strength. So I just want to tell you, I'm telling you in open public again how proud I am of you, right?
Thank you, Chris. I don't I don't hear that often. I think you're not such a small man yourself. You're a great man, and I know that you continue to do what you do and speak your truth and speak your mind in the interest of the territories and the people of Bermuda. And I hope that God will continue to grant you the strength that you can continue doing what you do and
Well,
continue in success.
well, I would say this that we grew up on the same root when we were younger, right? We didn't have money was never really we never had money for them, poured in from the rain, but we never knew, we never even, we were never poor, and we never even saw ourselves as poor
True.
because we
True.
had each other, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Every day
That's
we used
correct.
to have to go and tend to the cows or
Yeah,
go fix the car or help do something
yeah,
around the house. We
yeah,
had each
yeah,
other. Walk up the
yeah,
road, walk if we needed something, walk down the road to Aunt Hilda
yeah,
and get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I say that in the sense that as Caribbean people, one of the challenges I find as a person of Caribbean heritage is that we feel we or our children feel that the only way to be successful is to have money, right?
Sure,
And
sure,
that's a falsehood. Not saying you don't need money, but to say we've forgotten community, right? Many
sure.
of us, we get an education or skill set, and we all we think about is ourselves. And I see you where you have a skill set where you've created a union or helped to create a union, and that is something that's important. Brother Clyde Van Putten, right, helped to create the PLP, and others have taken up the mantle. Miss Leardown, you have the group now that are um, helping to put together the burial site for ancestors that
Mhm,
were found,
mhm,
right?
mm.
So Stacia has a story that has to be told, and I'm going to do my part to make sure that you all have an avenue to tell Stacia's story. So again,
Thank you.
signing out from Bermuda, and much love to my family down in St. Eustatius, the Glovers,
Thank you.
the Woodleys, and everybody in between who were related to.
Thank
Shout
you.
out to my teacher, Ms. Barker on Rosemary Lane. And yeah, and we'll be talking, my family. Respect, right?
Thank you. Thank you, cuz. Take care.
All right.
Very good. All right, bro.